A 35-year-old volunteer militia aide, Francis Scott Key was a Baltimore lawyer. The colonies were engaged in vicious conflict with the mother country, Great Britain. Because the conflict had gone on for so long, both sides had accumulated many prisoners. The American government went to the British. Let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners. American prisoners were held in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. On the appointed day, Francis Scott Key went out to negotiate with the British officials, and it was agreed that the men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he had been successful, went below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity. "Men," he announced, "tonight I have successfully negotiated your return to the colonies. You will be taken out of this boat, this filth, and out of your chains." Back up on the deck to arrange for their passage to shore, the British admiral said, "We have a slight problem. We will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it will merely be academic after tonight. It won't matter." "What do you mean?" "Well, Mr. Key, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag that they think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort McHenry? We're going to remove it from the face of the earth." "How are you going to do that?" "If you will, scan the horizon of the sea." And as he looked, he could see hundreds of little dots. The admiral continued, "That's the entire British war fleet. All of the gunpowder, all of the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. The fleet will be within striking distance in a matter of 2.5 hours. The war is over. These men would be free anyway." Francis Scott Key replied, "You can't shell that fort. That's a large fort. It's full of women and children. It is predominantly not a military fort." "Don't worry about it. We have left them a way out." "What's that?" "Do you see that flag way up on the rampart? We have told them that if they will lower that flag, the shelling will stop immediately, and we will know that they've surrendered, and you'll now be under British rule." Key went below and told the men what was about to happen. "How many ships?" "Hundreds." "Men, I'll go back up and shout down to you what's going on." Twilight fell. A haze hung over the ocean. The British war fleet suddenly unleashed. The sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there was no relief. It was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. Suddenly the sky, although dark, was brilliantly lit. From below, he could hear the men, the prisoners. "Tell us, where's the flag? What have they done with the flag? Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us!" 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into the shelling, every time a bomb would explode and it would be close to the flag, they could see the flag illuminated by the red glare of that bomb. And Francis Scott Key would report to the men below, "It's still up. It's not down." The British admiral, "Your people are insane. What's the matter with them? Don't they understand this is an impossible situation?" Remembering what George Washington had said, he replied, "The thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he will live on his knees. We have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take the flag down. We don't understand. Our reconnaissance tells us that the flag has been hit directly again and again and again, and yet it is still flying. But now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point." The barrage was unmerciful. All that could be heard above the explosions was the sound of the men praying below. "God, keep that flag flying where we last saw it." Sunrise came. There was a heavy mist hanging over the land, but the rampart was tall enough. There stood the flag in shreds. The flagpole itself was at a crazy angle, but the flag was still at the top. Francis Scott Key went immediately to Fort McHenry to see what had happened. The flagpole and the flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. When it had fallen, men, Fathers who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked up and held it up humanly until they died. Their bodies were removed and others took their place. What held that flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies. We now ask you all to listen closely to the Goads singing our national anthem. We particularly request, having just heard this story, that you pay close attention to the second stanza of the anthem, which many people have never heard. We believe a greater understanding and appreciation for our flag and our history will result.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars